Have you ever wanted to show content from another CMS on your WordPress site? Maybe you had a client with tons of content in their own Notion or Airtable or Google Sheets, and you wanted to get that into their WordPress site, but maybe didn't want to put it all into their database. Well, now you can do this with the new Bricksforge API query builder feature, and you can build your queries like you're used to in the Bricks editor and loop through external API sources. So we'll now be able to pull in data from external APIs directly into the Bricks Builder interface. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So here I've got a number of APIs available. I've got a bunch of posts from another WordPress site from the WP Minute, and that loops through the last 10 posts. I've got Airtable in here. We've got Pexels, right? So I can loop through Pexels, and I just have a query here for just like skateboards. And so if I come to the front end, this is actually looping through those images directly from Pexels and putting them onto our WordPress site, but it's not actually like putting them into the database, right? And here we've got the WP Minute. Like I could loop through the post, and I can get the featured image of each post and the post title and the post excerpt and loop through it just like you would with any other query in Bricks. And so what I want to do, I've got another couple here with like NoCodeDB and Notion. I want to just do it from scratch with Airtable. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take this Airtable table I have with a bunch of tools that I use. It's mostly just for demo purposes, but like, what if I wanted to get these onto my site, but didn't really want to import these into my database? So what we're going to be doing is setting up the query and the API call so that we can call these items and loop through them and pick out what information we want. And we're even going to get the logo image added in there as well. So let's jump into it. First of all, this is available in Bricksforge 3.4. It's still experimental, so probably don't use this on production sites. But yeah, it's pretty cool. It lets you, do HTTP GET requests and use the data within your Bricks query loop. So, once you get the API in there, you can loop through it just like you would any other query Bricks. So it's really powerful stuff. I'm really excited that this is a feature now in Bricks, or at least with Bricksforge. And, I think this is something that you're going to be seeing more and more of in the coming years. And I think any builder moving forward is going to have to seriously consider adding stuff like this. I think this is going to become more and more commonplace. You see this outside of WordPress in tools like Web Studio, in Toddle, in Div Hunt. I think even in Framer, you can do API calls now as well. And moving forward, I mean, there's a couple of builders in WordPress that allow this. You can do this in GreenShift, and you'll be able to do this in Etch, which will be really cool. And I think you can do it simple GET requests in Buildarius as well. So I'm glad that Bricksforge is sort of dragging bricks into the next era of WordPress. I think this is going to be a really cool and useful skill to be able to offer your clients the ability to pull in things like their Google reviews through the API, pull in any of their Google Sheet data. Really, any external API source can be manipulated to then query loop through, and it just is a way to sort of use the glue of API to sort of connect everything together, and it's really cool. So let's just jump into it really quick. I'm going to close some of these out. And so again, we have our Airtable here. And what we're going to need to do is set up authentication with a personal access token. And then we're going to be able to use that data in Bricks. So let's go to here. And we're here just on a blank install with Bricksforge. And I will go ahead and go to Bricksforge. All right, so in Bricksforge, you need to go to I think it's extensions, and then you make sure that you have this API query builder turned on. Once you do that, you'll have the option here to go to the menu, and you'll be asked to create your first endpoint, right? So what we can do is get started. So we're just going to hit add endpoint, and I'll do Airtable. And what we'll need is a URL from Airtable, and then we'll need to authenticate. So let's go to Airtable. And what we need to do is go to our API documentation. So first of all, I can hit, I always get lost here. Let's help, and then API documentation here. Sorry, my head's kind of blocking it here, but you click that, and that'll take you to the API docs for your specific table that you're on, right? So this is for my tools table, and so I can see all the different documentation for how to get in there. So let's just click authentication, and we'll see here we need to pass in the URL with the sort of like the base name, I guess it is, and then like which base with which table within that base. So we'll just copy this URL, and I'll come back to Bricks and paste that in here. And if I hit fetch, it's not going to do anything. It's going to say, oh, you're not authenticated. So we need to create a token so that we can authenticate in. So let's go back to Airtable. And I think I can't get there from here. I'll leave this open, but I'll go back to the actual table. And then I think I go to my account settings here and go to Builder Hub. So Builder Hub will take me to all my tokens. See, I have some other tokens that I use. And let's just create a new token, and we'll call this Bricksforge demo. And we're going to need to add a scope to the token so that it can read records. That's probably all we need. Sometimes I just go ahead and put the right permissions on there. I was probably just out of default, out of habit. And then I'm not even sure if you need the schema read bases, but I don't know. I always just put those three on. Those are pretty basic ones. And then we just need to say, okay, what base does this token have access to? You can select only certain bases. I'm just going to go ahead and select just all current and future ones for now. I'm going to delete this token, so don't bother stealing it from me. But yeah, there's my personal access token, the PAT, and it's a long string of numbers there. And so we're just going to copy that. And if you do want to reuse this, you got to make sure to save this because it's the only time you'll show it. But again, you can always just come in and make a new key. So I'll just make sure that's copied, and I'll come back to Bricksforge. And what we're going to do is pass in the personal access token to the as a bearer token. So I can paste that here, and it's just going to be a static token. And I think I can just paste it right in there. And what it's doing is it's actually making this authorization and then colon and then bearer space personal access token. So that's really, it's taking care of this syntax right here for us already. All we're doing is pasting this token in. But if I come back to my, so basically this is where the token goes, right? And it's adding these authorization parameters to the header. So that's basically what that's doing. And great. So let's come back here. And now I should be able to, sometimes you need to hit clear cache, at least in my experience here with this. I don't know if that's necessary, but when in doubt, just clear that and then hit fetch again. And just like that, we have fetched the data. So we have fully authenticated and we see the records. So here's like the tool name, Xano, and then like the, description of it. And then we get stuff like the logo, which is in a nested array. So we have like the logo, and then we have like the logo URL, the file name, the size, all that good stuff. So we're getting all the data, and this should be all the records. If I just scroll down, look, there's Bricksforge. That's a tool I use. WP Vivid, right? So we're getting that list of tools from Airtable. Just go back to my here, and yeah, so we're getting all that data directly in here. And let's just save this for now. So there's a bunch of settings here. I'm not going to cover everything. This is kind of just a first look video and to get everyone excited about it, hopefully. There's a bunch of different things in here and considerations and security stuff. But for now, let's just leave it as this. And we'll come back and put some query parameters in a minute. But the thing you want to make sure you do is create dynamic data tags. And so what this will do is like when you're creating queries in Bricks, you'll have the little lightning bolt icon and you'll select like page title or post title. That's a dynamic data tag. And so what this is going to do is create dynamic data tags for all this data that, isn't actually in your database. So that should be pretty cool to see. So let's just go ahead and make a page. And I will just make a new page here for Airtable demo, publish that. And we will get it with Bricks. And so what we're going to be doing is I'm just going to make a simple card grid and we'll call it a day. All right. So we'll just add a section. Within our section, I'll add a block, and this will be our like tool card, I guess. And within that, we're going to add a heading for the title of the tool, and then we'll add like a description one, and let's just add an image. Keep it nice and simple. And so now what I can do is normally when you turn on query loop, right, on the card, it'll start to populate, right? You can see the other sort of like virtual instances of the card on the page. So now's when you would normally go in and you like maybe select your custom post type, but now instead we're going to do type of query, and it's going to be not a post or terms query because those are within the WordPress database. But now we have another option here created by the Bricksforge API query builder called Airtable, and that's what we named it, back here, right? So let's just select that. And one thing you'll notice, it like almost looks like the query broke because there's like, no, now there's only one item and I'm not seeing like the whole list of all the tools on the page. And I don't know if that's just how it's supposed to work or what, but that's okay. We're going to save it and then look at the front end so we can make sure. So within our query, right, we don't want static text. So let's get rid of that and let's select dynamic data. And then we can select the item down here, right? So I should see, I actually don't see it in here. Okay. So let's go ahead and save and then come back here. And you know what? I don't know if I hit save. Let's hit save, refresh. So I think it needs to save to create those dynamic data tags. Let's just double check. Let's see. Why aren't they showing up? Can't search for Airtable. What am I missing here? What am I missing? It might be, so there's a couple things. I could do nested arrays. Let's wait on that. Let's go here and do records as like the root path. And so that's like the root path right there. And fetch, we now get just a big array of items. So that might be what we need. Let's, so I'm kind of figuring this out in real time. So let's refresh this again. And we'll open this again and go to our heading. And that's what I needed to do. So now it does select all the Airtable items. So I see all these dynamic data tags now. And so I can select tool name. And it's got a little prefix here for like Bricksforge and then API and then the actual name of the API call and then the fields and tool name. And so now it should work. And I'm going to go ahead and just put in like the Airtable tool description. Okay. And we can try, let's just wait on the image for now because I think it's going to be a little bit trickier. But now if I go to the front end, we see all of our tools. So there's Xano. That was the first one in the API call, right? So there's Xano. If I scroll down to the next one, there's Statamic. And we should see that here. That's number 2. Then Wix Studio would be after that. Scroll down a little bit. There it is, Wix Studio. So that's perfect. We're getting all of our data in. Let's go ahead and just like put a grid on here real quick. We have a 3-column grid. And there we go. So there's all the tools pulled directly into Bricks with a query, but using an external API instead of like custom post types or posts in the WordPress database. So very cool. Now, a couple things that we want to do. Let's add the image. So I think when I was testing this first, I tried clicking here for dynamic data to get the URL of the logo. I don't think that worked though. So let me try that. I don't even see that as an option in here. I don't even see the logo. So one thing we can do is come back to our API query builder and say include nested arrays. And so this will allow, see, like here's one of the arrays, or the whole thing's an array, but then here's like the logo, which is a nested array. That's what that little bracket sign means or whatever. So we want to include items within the arrays as well. So let's save that. Let's come back here and refresh. And it's going to go and generate this dynamic data tags for us again. So here, go back to our image, and we'll try it in both areas here because I actually don't remember which one works. But yeah, so now we have our normal Airtable things here, but then we also have all these other nested arrays. So there's a nested array for field logo, right? Because it's not just a URL. It's a URL. It's the image size. It's the image alt text, all that stuff, the ID of it, etc. So, but here's what we want is just the URL. So let's click that. Let's save, and let's go to the front end. You can see broken. It's not, the source is not correct on that. So let's go ahead and delete this. And instead of the dynamic option, let's just select let's just paste that into the custom URL option. And if I save that, come back and refresh, that works. So that does pull in an image, but it's pulling in the same image for each item. So it's just getting the first one for us. It's not getting the correct one for each card. The way I found out, at least again, I don't know if this is best practice or like these are bugs. I don't think it's a bug necessarily, but maybe just my limited understanding of APIs. But what I can do is actually right click and wrap this in a div, and then whatever, just name it image wrapper. It doesn't really matter. But on that one, I can select a query loop, and on the query, we're going to do type instead of just regular Airtable, which we have for the main query. We're going to go down to Airtable logo, because it's basically just trying to find a query, an array within it. All right, so that should, I think, solve the issue. So it's kind of a nested query here. And so if I refresh, there we go. There we go. So we've got our images in, and it's the correct image for each tool, right? We have the matching logos for each one. Let's just go ahead and, put some, I don't know, we're just going to make this a little smaller, I guess. And put a little style in. Let's see. And I think I can like stretch this. That, and then come back to the front end, refresh. There we go. So we have our title, our heading for the card, we have our description, and we have the correct image. So we can also, put this order next button, and the logo will be at the top. So that's basically it, right? We have our items in the query, and the only thing I'm noticing is that like I think it's pulling in the order from like when I added them into the Airtable. Like it's not really doing it in alphabetical order or anything. It's just kind of all in there all at once. And so what I can do is come back to the query builder, and we can pass in a couple parameters. And so this also kind of hung me up a little bit here. The way we want to do this is like we want to sort by the tool name and have it ascend from A to Z. So the way we can do that is by passing in some query parameters. So originally I tried to do like field tool name. So we want to like filter by that, and then we fetch that. It doesn't really seem to do anything, right? Like Xano is still first. And so I think this is because sometimes with query parameters, you need to pass in an array, even if there's a single object. And so the way I was able to do that would be like sort, and then put in like the first, it's saying basically sort by the first item in the array. And then we're going to sort by the field. And so I'm putting just brackets around these. You know, depending on the structure of your Airtable, it might not be necessary, but this is how it worked for me. So then if I clear that cache and fetch again, now it's working. Now I get ACF at the front, then active pieces. So it's in alphabetical order now, right? And there's advanced themer, Airtable, right? So now it's in alphabetical order. The other thing you can do is if I just copy and paste this, add another query parameter, I can sort by direction too. So I could do like ascending or descending. So if I do like sort by direction descending and then clear cache and fetch, it'll start at the bottom. So it'll start with like zip WP, there's Xano. So it's starting at the end of the alphabet that way. We don't want that. Let's just keep that ascending. You can change that if you want, but you can, you know, play around with the filters. If you don't want to take all the data in from a certain spreadsheet or whatever, you can filter it and only get in the data that you want. So now we're sorting by alphabetical order, descending or ascending. So starting with A, so I can refresh. I don't need to do anything in the builder. Now it's correctly sorting alphabetically, right? So we see our tools, we see all the stuff in our cards, right? We've got the heading, the description, and the sort of nested array to get the image URL field. But yeah, that's working. Very cool stuff that you can do this now in Bricksforge. I think this is a really exciting development. I think I hope, you know, for me, it was like when you first discover custom post types, it kind of changes how you think about websites. And so I think giving people access to these external API elements to build within WordPress is really powerful stuff. You know, this was all doable with code before, but now there's a nice UI for it to build build your query, right? You can build it with the fields here, fill out the stuff you need, you know, change the cache probably to like 12 hours or something. Choose what page it loads on if you only want to load it on a certain page. But yeah, that's basically it. So now, you know, the cache is saved there, so it's not needing to fetch that data every single time, which will cut down on, you know, the number of calls you do to your external APIs. Really important stuff to understand, especially if you have limits on your API. You know, especially stuff like Google Maps, you don't really want to, you want to cache that more than just letting people click through it. But hey, I'm pretty excited that this works pretty much right out of the box. There's a couple intricacies with what APIs you're using and what their documentation tells you on how to sort stuff, how to fetch nested arrays, stuff like that. But hopefully this gives you an idea of stuff you can do. This is just a simple demo of some Airtable records, nothing crazy here, but you know, use your imagination and hopefully you come up with something cool. Let me know what else you're interested in. Are you already using something like this? What kind of use cases do you have? Do you have clients that come to you and say, like, I've got all this stuff in Airtable, what do I do? Your first reaction doesn't necessarily have to be, well, I can't do it. Or, you know, we can just import that stuff, like, you know, from a CSV into WordPress. And like, no, you can just call that stuff with a API and get it directly in your builder of choice. Increasingly, you're going to see this more and more with builders, I think, moving forward in WordPress. I think it's a really powerful tool, and it's a good concept to understand how modern websites are built. So that's all I got for this video. Let me know what you think. Hit the like, hit the subscribe if you're not subscribed, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.